Hey everyone, welcome back to the Pathways to Happiness podcast. My name is Nena Lavonne. I'm a life coach that specializes in life transformation and personal development. And today we are going to be talking about entering new phases of life, how we can bravely move through them, really embrace them, and actually look forward to what these new chapters in life can bring to us. I know a lot of people are facing some pretty big changes right now. And let's face it, I think we're all going through a new phase in this world in and of itself. I mean, we didn't plan for this phase, but here we are, here it is. And now going forward, we're going to be a part of something new. And so, as usual, I have a lot to say about this topic, and I chose this topic today because of a question one of our fabulous audience members sent in. So I'm excited to dive into it, but before I do, as always, I just wanted to take a moment to thank you so much for your support here and on the Nena Lavonne YouTube channel. You guys are such an incredible audience, and the questions you've been submitting lately have been just really amazing and extremely relatable to many of our other listeners. So please definitely keep them coming. You can reach me by email at nena.lavonne@gmail.com, and that's spelled nena.lavonne. And you can also reach me on Twitter, and my Twitter handle is at Nena Lavonne. So the first thing that I want to say about this topic is that life really is like a book. So our life is a case, and when they start thinking about new phases or chapters in their life, a lot of anxiety comes up for them. And, if you are in that boat, you are certainly not alone, because that is a natural reaction for many, many, many people. So what exactly is a new chapter in life? What do people really mean when they say that? Well, I think for one, it's an acknowledgement that there's been a big enough change that we understand that going forward, things are going to clearly be different. And as soon as we realize that, we often start to get really sentimental. We start kind of airbrushing over all the difficult moments we've had in our present situation and start feeling like what we have at this moment could never be improved upon. We just start really clinging to it like it's the best thing that is ever going to happen to us in our life. And like I mentioned earlier, recently there's just been so many changes. So we might be asking ourselves, again, going forward, what happens now? What's next? A lot of life's big changes we choose for ourselves, but also a lot of them we do not. So that means that we might be voluntarily going into this new phase of our life, and it may mean that we are, kind of reluctant to go into this new phase of our life. But we have to realize that phases and transitions are really opportunities. They are invitations to evolve and to create new beginnings in our life. A lot of times I talk about seasons. I talk about the seasons of life because that's something that really makes sense to me. No matter what our favorite season is, we wouldn't want to have that season all of the time. And I know that because I lived for a long time in a place where there was just one climate. And while I absolutely loved living there, I really missed the snow. I missed the fall. I missed, being able to see new flowers bloom in the spring, because where I was living, it was just kind of hot and tropical all the time. So I ended up moving from that area, and I really embrace now being able to experience all the seasons. So it's just kind of a metaphor to me for life. And I think that there are different seasons of life, and all the seasons of life are important. It's not like one season is, the most important part of our life, and then the others are not really monumental in any way. We feel sometimes that we have some significant things that happen inside a phase or a season in our life, and we feel a lot of times that that defines us. So it can become very difficult to move on from that phase because it's so intertwined with our identity. And that is also something that I can really relate to because when I chose to switch careers, I was a business owner for a long time, and my life was just so involved in this business. I loved it so much. It was just such a unique and amazing experience. But, there was a time where that needed to change for a lot of reasons. And my identity was so wrapped up in that I felt like it was even more threatening to move on to a new phase of life because it was almost like if I am no longer in this phase of life, who am I? Everything I think of as myself has to do with this phase of life. How could I possibly go into another phase of life? I guess in some part of my mind, I was thinking that it would or it should last forever. But we can't hold on to anything forever. Everything is always evolving, every aspect of life. And the more sad we feel or the more resistance we have, the less we gain from these changes because we are just constantly mourning the past. So we're going to be filled with anxiety, which kind of just puts a filter. It puts this cloud over this new experience that holds so many, possibilities. We have that desperation to cling to the way things were. We want the same lifestyle. We want the same routine. We want the same relationships. We want the same occupation. But the problem is that life has already moved on. We're trying to hold on to what we think of as the present moment, but that present moment has already actually become the past. It's like a mirage. So we know we have to move on somewhere in our mind, but we still try to hold on to it, even though it's something that is really just a memory. Once something has happened, it's a memory. It's no longer our reality. And again, it can just be so hard because you want it to be the reality now. You want it to be the reality forever because you're thinking that this is so amazing and wonderful. And a lot of times it has to do with feeling settled, like we are used to something, that it feels comfortable and familiar. And sometimes we question making any kind of changes when we get older. And I know age is really subjective, but for example, I have a client that really knew she needed a divorce for like 10 years before she actually got one. And the reason that she held off for so long is that she had this limiting belief that once you get to a certain age, you should have your life together. But is that really the case? I mean, it's certainly not the case for most people. I don't think we ever feel that we have our life together. And certainly we shouldn't feel that age should stop us from making changes. If you think about it, age in and of itself has really changed. I mean, the age that we consider old now is considerably older than what we used to think about as being old as children. I mean, at least I think that is the case for me. And I also think that age is very, very subjective again. I think we are as old as we feel. And I know for myself, I definitely think of myself as being much younger than I actually am. And I know that's the case for a lot of people, but I know the opposite is also true for a lot of people. So it's really how we view our own self. It has to do with our own perception of ourself. So age really is just a number. So firstly, I don't think age should have any consideration in any of this. It is always a possibility to enter a new phase in our life. And again, sometimes it's optional and sometimes it is not optional. So we always have to be open to that possibility. We just can't get so caught up in thinking that one thing is the end all be all, and that is what should be forever and ever and ever. We always have to be open to new possibilities. Now, I'm not going to deny that new phases of life aren't sometimes stressful or scary or challenging, but we always have to remember how much potential for growth they really offer, and that of course, our biggest growth usually comes out of circumstances that make us uncomfortable. And I also know that saying something like that is one of those things that often seems like it would be sounding great on paper, but not really applicable in real life or not easy to digest in real life, especially given the circumstances now. I mean, we are talking about the entire planet right now needing to go through lots of changes and potentially entering all kinds of new phases. I mean, we've never had this many people without work, and a lot of people are losing their businesses or going to have businesses that are struggling significantly for quite some time, or even be a part of an industry right now that could be just flat out ending. So we are talking about some pretty big changes in life, and other people are facing huge relationship changes because this quarantine put a huge strain on a lot of marriages, a lot of, family members together also. A lot of problems came up. And so there are going to be repercussions because of this. I'm not saying that every relationship is going to end in divorce, but it has brought to light a lot of issues for a lot of people, and that can be something very challenging to face and to start to work on. So today I just wanted to talk about the different ways we can kind of cope with these new stages in our life, these new phases that we are entering in our life, and talk about how we can reframe them into something positive, really work on our mindset, and just kind of remind ourselves that it could be something positive. And in fact, most of the time that we have these changes in our life, they really turn into beautiful opportunities. So that's kind of our focus. So let's start by talking about kind of the practical stuff. So the first step in really going forward into a new phase of life is letting go. And I know when I say that, sometimes it feels like I'm saying that we have to say goodbye. And I guess, when we think about it that way, it makes it more difficult than it needs to be, because we have to remember that even when, we have these new phases of our lives, that doesn't erase the past. It doesn't disqualify the past, or it doesn't make it any less beautiful than it was. It's just an acknowledgement that that particular phase of our life is ending and that we are going to be moving on to a new phase. A lot of times we just get so attached to certain phases of our life. I mean, everyone's got certain phases of their life that they can think back on and say, oh, that was the best time in my life. I think we kind of think of our life in phases. We have little sections of our life. We divide our life up, and we have the sections that are good and the sections that we don't think are that great. So a lot of times when we have those phases that we, again, feel are more precious than other phases, it's hard to say goodbye to them. But if we think of it like we don't want to say goodbye, let's say, to our child's baby years, we would never get to see that baby graduate or win a Nobel Peace Prize or whatever it is that they go on to do. But there is value in letting life continue on its journey and at the pace that it should be continuing on. We don't want to get stuck in any phase, no matter how wonderful it seems. So we have to have, again, that acknowledgement that yes, we are moving on, even though it could have been a potentially wonderful stage that we are stepping out of. We have to think, if we've already experienced something and experienced something fully, does more of it make it better, or is it enough just knowing that it happened, to have experienced it happening. We don't need to necessarily have that same experience continue on forever and ever. We have to understand that the possibilities of the future can be just as bright as what we have already experienced. And again, it's not like we are throwing these experiences in a trash can. We are still honoring these experiences, but we are just understanding that we are moving forward to have brand new experiences. And another thing we have to really understand is that our attitude determines everything. Our mindset is really what's creating every single thing in our life. So if we decide before we've even gotten started that this is going to be a negative experience, then absolutely, you're right. It's going to be a terrible negative experience because we have already made that decision. We have placed this limiting belief on ourselves, and it is going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy because we put all our energy or all of our mental energy into seeking out all the negative aspects of this new experience. We're going to notice every tiny little detail that could potentially even be considered as something bad. Whereas if we have a positive mindset, if we are optimistic about the experience, we are going to notice all the good things that are present in this new experience. But again, it is just all about our mindset and our perception really creating the experience for us. And that is what happens in our life over and over and over again. We always have to think of how our brain is serving us. And if we catch ourselves having these negative feelings and just assuming everything is going to be terrible and having this catastrophic thinking, if we can catch ourselves, we can really question these thoughts. And when we question them, we can realize that no, this is not necessarily the case. In fact, this is almost 100% not going to be the case. But again, if we have that conviction that it's going to be awful, then yes, it's going to be awful. So that's something that we really, really, really have to pay attention to because our mindset, thankfully, is something that we can always change. And the first step of changing any mindset is to realize the negative mindsets or the biases that we do have. So that just takes, introspection. It takes self-analysis. But we're smart people. We can catch this. We can, if we put the time in, really see what our thought processes actually are. And a lot of times we can realize that they are definitely not serving us. So take a look at our mindset, see where we are at, and make the changes that you need to make because our thoughts totally determine our reality. So if we have positive thoughts, our reality is going to follow suit big time. Another thing that we can think about is why it's important to move into this next phase in our life. What could possibly be gained from it? And here we want to really allow ourselves to daydream and not just think about all the terrible things that we assume are going to go wrong, but allow ourselves to playfully daydream about all the potential good that can come out of this. And this is something that we almost never do because we have that initial bad thought and we just, again, cling on to it. We assume that that is the blueprint of what is going to happen in the future. But allow yourself to think about all the potential good and all the opportunity and think about all the things that you have not yet accomplished in your life that you could start working on, all the things that you want to do, all the people that you want to know, all the good that you've been dreaming about that you really brushed under the rug so that you could just continuously live in this little comfort bubble, which is not something I'm saying critically because this is something as human beings we all do. We always have that strong desire for the familiar. It's completely understandable. but it certainly doesn't bring us into our best self, and it does not allow us to experience new things in our life. Really, nothing happens in the comfort zone that is very productive or exciting. It is really a lot of times based solely on fear. We don't think of it like that because we think about it as, all the things that we know that we like. And a lot of times it's not even that we like them. It really is just that we are familiar with them. And that's a huge study that they did on music. A lot of times people's favorite songs have nothing to do with whether or not they initially thought the song was great. Once something becomes familiar, you end up liking it generally more and more and more. And that goes for every aspect of our life. Once we get comfortable with something, we think it's great and we try to hold on to it at all costs, even though, if we really did a lot of introspection, we could see a lot of flaws in, many, many aspects of our life. But we don't tend to do that because we like to go on autopilot. And again, no criticism there. I'm a human being. I know what it's like. I certainly, have to push myself out of that comfort zone also. So it's something that we have to give constant attention to, or we are just going to kind of just sit on our couch and let the world pass us by. We want to have more of the same experience over and over and over. I mean, it is so unusual if you think about that. I mean, you would think that as human beings, we would want our life to be adventurous. We would want something exciting and fresh and new. And I think that's what we should want. But a lot of times we don't even let ourselves, think out of the box. We just, again, are going to go with what we know. And so we can just do pretty much the same day every single day of our lives. One thing that is really comforting to me when I need to make a big change is to remind myself that I don't have to have it all figured out right now. And we don't have to have every step of the way all organized and we feel like we are perfectly prepared for it and that, we've put the work in. I mean, we should try to work on coming up with a plan, but a lot of things happen as we go. We plan as we go. We learn as we go. And if we have that mindset of we need to know everything before we can get started in a new phase of life, we will never get started because we are never going to be prepared. We never get to a point in time where we feel like, I got this. This is going to be so easy for me. I know exactly what's going to happen, and I'm just going to go along with that plan. I mean, think of how many times in your life you've said that to yourself. Probably none. I've never said that to myself. Always there is a degree that is unknown. There are always unknown variables also that we couldn't possibly plan for. So we just have to know that we just put one foot in front of the other. We take a baby step and then another baby step and then another baby step. And as we go, we start to formulate some kind of a plan as we gain more experience, as we gain more knowledge. But, when we have this perfectionistic attitude of having everything all set up, having all of our ducks in a row, nothing ever gets accomplished because we get way too scared to get started because we always realize, what is reality. And that is, we don't always know what's going on. There's no way to know. We could never have a master plan that really was something that was going to be a fail-safe for errors or difficulties. There's always that potential, and we just have to kind of go with it. And think about it this way also. Think about where you are now and think about how much you didn't know, when you got there. You didn't have a master plan. Maybe you had an idea, or maybe if it's occupational, maybe you had a degree, but you didn't know and you figured it out. We always figure it out as we go. And when we start thinking about these new phases of our life, it just fills up with tons of fear a lot of times because we feel like we're just looking at tons and tons of unknown. But just again, we have to remind ourselves that nothing in life is known. There is uncertainty with everything. All feelings of certainty are always an illusion because, things could change at the drop of a pin. So we just have to know that there's always that level of uncertainty, and that is totally fine. In fact, I did a video on my YouTube channel about embracing uncertainty, which is a wonderful skill to be able to have. If you did not watch that video, I highly suggest you watching that, because that is something that is really life-changing if you are able to really adopt that mindset. I mean, it really truly is paradigm shifting. So check that out if you have not done so already. And I think another thing we have to keep in mind is that just because we are entering a new phase of life, it does not mean that our life is over. It is truly a new beginning. So that is what we want to focus on, and that is what we want to say to ourselves, because think about how much our inner dialogue really affects us if we just think of it constantly as something ending and saying to ourselves that something is ending all the time. I mean, yes, let's acknowledge it, but let's not, beat the dead horse that something is over. Focus on the new beginning. Focus on the potential. There's so many amazing experiences that we have yet to have. And that's why, again, we've got to keep reading those chapters. We got to keep writing those chapters, because there's tons of good stuff that we need to get to. We can't just experience these same, albeit good experiences again and again and again, because we've done that. Got to move on. And there are so many wonderful things that are waiting for us in this new phase. And we also can think of it as an opportunity to leave pain in the past, because a lot of times, even though we are clinging onto something, there is still a lot of pain that is associated with it. And as we move on to something new, we can start to let that pain go, because we don't want to bring it into our new experience. So we can really take some time in introspection to think about what these painful aspects of our lives are right now and what we can do to make positive changes. So that's something to get excited about as well. Moving on to a new phase of our life that is a lot more emotionally healthy for us and a lot less painful. And I think it is really fun to come up with a new vision, to reinvent yourself, and like we talked about, think about all the things that we really wanted to be a part of our life, and then kind of life happened and we just kind of got stuck with what we had, and then we just, in our mind make it even better than it actually is. But think about right now, starting with a clean slate. What is that new vision that we want in our life? Because remember, we can have, be, or do anything. It's only ourselves that put limitations on ourselves. So if we really start to remove those limitations and think about getting rid of all the resistance that we have, think about all the things that we can build. I mean, really, the possibilities are endless, and that's something that is so exciting to me. I am a person, I love to move, because every time I move, it's like there are so many new things to see. There's new people to meet. There's there's a whole new world out there every single time. And maybe you're not a person that likes to move, let's say, but moving into a new phase of your life offers that same experience. It offers that same opportunity. So start thinking about what that new version of yourself is going to be. What is the new vision for your life? And on another practical note, something that I like to tell my clients, and something that helped me in the past when I was struggling with this as well, is if you are struggling to move on to that new phase of your life, you may need to get rid of some of the physical reminders of, the life that you had recently. So if it is just too difficult to have pictures around, let's say, of a past relationship or of an occupation, or anything that reminds you of a situation that you are moving out of, you may need to put those away for a while, including clothes. Sometimes you can't even wear the same clothes. Sometimes you need all new cues around you to remind yourself that, yes, I'm moving into a new phase of my life, because a lot of things we have sentimental attachments to that prevent us sometimes from feeling positive about moving on to our new future goals and our future journeys. So that's something that definitely I had to do. Sometimes you need to put things temporarily away in boxes so you're not surrounded with them, and, put things around you that remind you of what you're moving towards. So there's always things that we're moving towards. So, you can have things that are symbolic. Something that's symbolic for me is having plants. Plants are something that remind me personally of new growth and new beginnings. So that's something that has been deeply symbolic in my life. And I always make sure in my bedroom that I have at least one plant. And that's something that is a reminder for me, but whatever it is for you. Maybe it's a necklace that you need to wear that reminds you of something that you're working on. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is, but think about the things that you may need to put away for a little while, and think about visual cues that may be actually helpful to you as you move forward into this new phase. And then we can begin on all the fun stuff, which is starting to plan our transition into this new phase. And yes, we can't have every detail planned out because, there are, again, a lot of unknown variables. But we can make some basic plans. We can make some goals, and it's important that we do so that we are continuously moving forward, and not just when we have big changes in our life. We have to think about always creating new goals for ourselves, whether it be big, relationship or career goals, to things that are more in line with personal development and self-growth. But we do always need to have some kind of goals, long-term, short-term, small, big. Goals do need to be there. And once we start planning our transition, we can start celebrating our new journey and think about every tiny little step of the way as a celebration, as a success. And we have to give ourselves a lot of encouragement during the way, because remember that no matter how positive it is for us to move on to a new phase of your life, and maybe you don't feel yet like it is positive, but eventually, hopefully, we will get there. But we need to really give ourselves a pat on the back for every single step we take, because we are creatures of habit, and it is difficult to make changes. It's easy to think about, but it's, more difficult to execute. So we have to, again, celebrate this new journey and really reward ourselves for making positive changes. And most importantly, we need to commit to having fun in the process, because life really should be fun. And, it's something that we do forget. That was the subject of our last podcast, or maybe 2 podcasts ago, about having fun in life. And, if our life has lost fun, it's something that we have to make a priority again. And a lot of times when we're feeling like we are in a stage of our life that seems like it is tainted by loss, and a lot of times for us, we equate change with loss. And that's something, again, we need to kind of shift our thinking on. But either way, we forget to have fun. So I want you to think about not only getting excited about this new phase of our life and, again, celebrating that journey, but commit to yourself that you are going to have fun, especially if you have recently gone through some traumatic experiences having to do with these changes. Because on the cusp of change, a lot of times there is just so much stress that comes along with it, a lot of worry, a lot of self-doubt, and a lot of fear, and a lot of times we don't know what to expect, and sometimes it's easier to desire a negative outcome than to be in that unknown, to be swimming in the unknown. So a lot of times that's why people mentally jump to negative conclusions, because they just want something definitive. But, don't have expectations for yourself other than knowing that no matter what the future holds, you will get through it and you will be able to make appropriate goals and you will reach them, and that you truly are the author of your life. So you are the one that gets to make the decision of how fantastic your life will be. You are the one, you are the creator of this, because again, your thoughts create your reality. So start with that mindset of, yep, it's a new phase of my life, and guess what? I'm excited about it. I'm going to make it amazing. This is my life. This is my new chapter, and I am going to make it amazing, because we always have that ability. We always have the ability to make our life as good or as miserable as we decide that we want it to be. And I'm not saying that we control the universe. Of course, things happen that we didn't design. Life happens, but we always can design our reaction to it. So we are always creating our own reality, because two people can go through the exact same situation and have a completely different experience. So you are just committing to yourself that your experience is going to be positive. And yes, you absolutely have the ability and the control to be able to make that decision and to have that decision truly be reality. So I just wish you so much luck and love in this new process, in this new phase of your life. And again, it may be more difficult if you are entering a phase that you didn't want to enter into. If you had really wanted to stay in the old phase, yes, that does make it more challenging, but know that that part of your life will be with you forever. It's part of who you are. These are your experiences. And now we are just moving on to new experiences, and every phase of our life is important. There is beauty and meaning and lessons to be learned in every single phase. Remember, you are a piece of art, but you are a piece of art that is always in progress. We are never done. We are never complete. So we don't want to ever get to a phase of our life and just kind of clock out from there. We are, again, masterpieces that will take our entire lifetime to complete. So we don't want our journey to end at any given point. We want to keep going and to have new experiences. And remember, our identity has nothing to do with any phase of our life. We continue to be who we are, no matter what experiences that we have, no matter, what our job is or what relationship we are in. It doesn't matter. We are the magnificent person that we are, no matter what is happening externally for us. So I look forward to talking to you next time. I thank you so much for spending time with me today, and keep those questions coming, because these questions that you have been sending lately have been amazing and so relatable to other people. And if you are questioning, I don't know if I should send a question in, please do, because what I'm finding is many people have the same questions. I often get some of the same questions, maybe 2 or 3 times every single podcast. So please send them in, because if it doesn't help you, it's going to help somebody else. So I hope you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Take care, guys.